Okay, people. So today I have the pleasure of sitting down with not only Rory Karpf, but also Sean Carrigan. Um, guys, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate that.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, man.
Hey, no worries at all. No worries at all. So your new film, Grace Point, man. Yo, I watched that. I don't look at synopsises. I don't look at trailers. I like going in fresh, no prejudgments or anything. So I had no clue what this was. And I was thoroughly, yeah, man, just surprised and filled with joy by the end of it, man. I really enjoyed what you did and how you constructed it. How did
Thank
this
you so
project,
much.
no worries, man. How did this project come about?
It came about. So originally, I was given a script back in like 2013 called Mercy Falls. I just gotten a manager, and he asked me what I was interested in doing. All my career, I've done like documentaries and unscripted. And I said, one of my dreams is to direct a scripted movie. He's like, well, I got this crazy script. And it had the same basic premise, except it was like 50 times bigger. Like they went all around like the US and there were mountains and rapids and explosions. It was like at least a $25 million movie. So for years we tried to get money and get actors, and like 99% of projects in development in Hollywood, it went away. And so a few years after that, I was filming in this town called Laurinburg, North Carolina. And I do a lot of recreations in my documentary work because I've always been drifting over to the scripted side. And we were filming in this town of Laurinburg, which is kind of like almost a town that time has forgotten. You know, there's a Starbucks there and there's a Planet Fitness, but there's tons of abandoned buildings, and the economy and kind of hurt it. So my director of photography said, hey, we should try to film something in this town. What about if you took that Mercy Falls script and rewrote it so everything took place here? And it was like an epiphany went off in my mind. I was like, oh my God, like I think I could do that. And that was December 2020, and we were filming by June 2021. So in 6 months, I think I rewrote the script in a week from a page one rewrite. And then it just, we were off and running. I reached out to Johnny Lowe, and then everything just started coming together after that.
Right. Now, with that whole process, because I will say, this like that original idea with the explosions and I think this probably, just thinking about it, what you did in my mind, it feels that it's the best way to go, because without saying, revealing anything for anyone that hasn't seen it, and people go watch it because you're gonna love it, but it makes more sense in the ability to, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that just shows you that timing's everything in life. You know, things work out how they're supposed to work out. And just because you want something to happen at a certain time, as long as you don't give up hope, I say, as long as you have a heartbeat, you have hope. So I never have given up on this project. And to your point, the town was perfect, and it helped with the story and the storytelling, and the timing was perfect because I had, in that time, formed a working relationship with Rob Lowe. We had done a couple of projects together, and that's how I met his son, John Owen, who stars in the film. And I've told this story, but I was doing a documentary with Rob about the mudslides in Montecito, and 20-some people passed away, and it was a documentary that was on Peacock, and Johnny's high school girlfriend died. So I met Johnny through that, and we went to have lunch, and he's told me he was running late. He was coming from a meeting, and I thought he meant like a meeting with an agent or manager, and what he meant was his AA meeting. And at the lunch, he showed me his 1-year chip, and right away I was like, man, this guy would be perfect to be the star of this movie, even though he didn't have a lot of experience. And then Johnny, sponsor in AA, was Jim Parrick, who plays Cutter. And Jim Parrick is friends with Sean. So that's how I met Sean. So everything just worked out, you know, and it really became sort of this family vibe on the whole film, that like a labor of love that we were all invested in. And the timing couldn't have gone any better.
Oh man, I think that explains a lot, because the relationships really feel authentic. Like, you buy all of them. You buy it, like Andrew and John, like, you know what I mean? You buy the Cutter situations with Brandon, just all of those things feel real. And I think sometimes you'll watch stuff and you're like, I don't buy that they're, I mean, I watched something today and I didn't buy the family dynamic, right? You don't buy the friendships or anything like that. The dialogue.
It wasn't The Godfather, was it? I just want to make sure you got good taste here.
How did you know, man?
Like, I'm not buying this whole premise. I'm sorry.
But I think chemistry is a big thing, and there was a great chemistry in this. And so, like, learning that there's this connective tissue between so many people, right? It just makes so much sense.
And I think, I think everybody, involved was, it was such a passion project for all of us because it was such a good story, script. And, the more time we all spent together when we were working on it, it became a labor of love for all of us.
Yeah. Like, sometimes you see things with, like, the prodigy of stars and singers and that kind of thing, and you get a little dubious, right? Because not everyone can actually carry the torch the same as their relatives. But man, John was like at the beginning, right? You're watching it and I'm like, oh man, he's a bit of a whiny brat, but that's the character, you know what I mean? Yeah. But what I loved was the fact that you could see him change, right? In the way he talked, the way he behaved, his body, like all of these things, you saw that transformation. And we don't always get that. You know what I mean? So I thought that was great. And you're just like, yo, you know what I mean? John Lowe's doing his thing, man. Like, this is great.
We need to bring you out on our publicity tour with us. No, it means a lot. Thank you so much. We really worked hard to craft those things that you're talking about, and it all goes down to just having a set where people feel comfortable, and also prepping. We did a lot of prep work. I went to Johnny's place with Jim Parrick and my DP, and we went through the whole script, and we just went and talked about every scene and every line, and that stuff makes a big difference. So to know that the film connected with you first and foremost emotionally is really great to hear.
Yeah, no, it did. Like, what was the rewrite process like for you? Like, how did you kind of know, if we're going to lose these locations, how do we get that same emotional impact by doing it here? Like, how
like you said, making it smaller really helped, because everything was a lot more small and intimate. So yeah, that really helped a lot too. So there's a saying that we have in editing: when in doubt, cut it out. So by removing a lot of things, that really helped bring to the surface other areas. And then, I think the original script of Rocky was written in 3 days, but then they worked on it. And he said like 90% of the script was different by the time they filmed. So I rewrote it in a week and then kept fine tuning the dialogue with the actors, with John and Jim Parrick. They worked on it, and each of them added something. So we went with that. And then, as a director, I try not to be a micromanager. I try to hire the best people possible and then let them do their thing. And that was the case with Sean. Like he brought to me such a depth to a character that could be very one-dimensional. He's the bad guy in quotes. But then you look at that scene in the prison where he's with Brandon, and I just thought Sean was so good in that scene. And then if you watch the film a second time, when you know some different things, you'll see a whole other depth to that scene because you know more about his character. So I was just really blessed to have really committed, talented actors like Sean.
Wow, thanks, man. we were also lucky to have somebody that was so collaborative, and a lot of these scenes, when I auditioned for the role, maybe I played a scene hard, like harder and more stern, and came at him more aggressive, and then there were times we'd shoot it that way, and then Rory would say, hey, maybe on this one you pull back a little bit, maybe this one it's a little bit more emotional for him, and maybe this tugs at him a little bit more, or it pulls at him a little bit more, it's just a little bit more soft in this delivery. And so when you have a director, you try a bunch of different ways like that, and I think we tried numerous scenes, for my character Luther, because he's a very layered character, especially not to give anything away, but especially with the ending and like where he is, and so things mean something to him, but then they also mean something to him in a different way by the end, and so yeah, it was fun to have a director that allowed for that room to to kind of like flex your acting muscles a little bit on different lines and different parts of of scenes, and that's so kudos to Rory as well. So it's one thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, Sean, how do you get into that kind of character? Because he is so nuanced. I mean, and even at the end, when he's kind of breaking things down, he talks about his history with someone else, and you just thinking on that, right? Just being involved in that is gonna bring something different to someone just on its own. So there's all of these different components of Luther. So how do you, and then also be able to manage it so no one is going to figure things out too early?
Well, that is one of the things when I first read the script, because the script was given to me by Jim Perrick. Jim Perrick reached out to me. He and I had done a play together called Welcome Home Soldier for many years at Playhouse West in North Hollywood, and we've been in this play for many years, and it's about Vietnam veterans. They go out, the true story of Vietnam veterans, real life stories of how they were treated when they came home. And we did this play for many years, and so Perrick and I have had a close working relationship because of that. And so he knew when he read the script, he's like, I think this is something for you. I think this part could be for you. And when I read it, I called Jim immediately as soon as I was done. And then I was on the phone with Rory the next day, and he said, put yourself on tape for it. And I did. And I think what you have to do is you have to, because the character is so layered, you have to start with, because, okay, so he's the bad guy, right? He's the bad guy in the movie. You can't just look at it as he's the bad guy. No, his any villain, any character who has bad aspects about them, they, in their mind, they are justified. And so they're justified in the things they're doing, and that's the way I made Luther, is that he's justified in the things that he does because he's the only one that's sticking up for that town that time forgot. They built the interstate, and now no one ever comes into that town anymore. And so all these people that had businesses, both small businesses that have now closed down, and now there's all these abandoned shops. Who's going to take care of the people? He is. He's going to step up, and whether it's by nefarious means or what, he's doing it. He's taking care of. He's created a community, and that's, you make justifications. You write out a backstory, and that's what I gave him, so that when he's telling somebody something, it's coming from a place where deep in his heart, whether it's a black heart or not, he's like, you know, cold heart. He knows that it's coming from something that he can justify. So
yeah,
that's how I approached it.
Well,
and then
definitely sold
also
it.
had to layer some other stuff in there, but I don't, like I said, I don't like give things away.
Yeah, no, you definitely sold it. Like it was great. Like, have either of you read Dune Messiah?
No,
I don't think so.
What is that?
So it's the third book in Frank Herbert's Dune series.
Oh,
And so it's great. But like Dune is like a fat ass book. And then you've got it's the second book. Sorry, it's the second book. And then Dune Messiah is like, it's like The Hobbit. It's really thin. And you're picking up like kind of a few years after Dune, and it's really intriguing. And all of these things are happening. But you're just like, you're getting towards the end of the book, and you're like, how are you going to bring all of this to a close? Because we've got this here, that there, and then suddenly this thing happens, and all the dominoes fall into, and you're like, oh shit, that's so smart. And you get that kind of feeling in Grace Point, because the minute when it all I will say, and I think it's just because I'm having to watch so many things. I thought about something like about maybe halfway through the film. I wondered, I was just like, I don't know, that might be too crazy, right? But then when the thing happened and I'm just like, yo,
oh wow,
that's so smart. And then when you do the look back at certain you're just like, yes, obvious, because and you think about the reactions of people in certain scenes, and you're just like, man, like that was filmed so well that it didn't give anything away. But when you think about it,
when you look back on it,
yeah, that makes like so much sense. And so yeah, it kind of felt like that same emotional impact that you get when you hit that point in Dune Messiah, when you get towards the end of Grace Point.
Okay.
Yeah, well, we wanted to be able to hopefully get repeat viewings, and that you can maybe certain films you can get different experiences if you watch it a second time. And also too, I think if there's one thing I've tried to learn is you really want to like stick the landing. You really want to have your end be good. You want a short beginning and a solid ending, because I don't know if you've seen the film Field of Dreams with Kevin Costner, the baseball movie Field of Dreams. You know, that scene's so famous for, hey, Dad, do you want to have a catch? And men are crying. But like before that, like that film's pretty crazy movie, and it's definitely subjective and a lot, some slow parts, but everyone just remembers that end and how they felt and how they walked out of the theater. So I was like, man, that's one thing I want to make sure we really land on is the ending.
Yeah.
And it works.
Yeah. And I love the trailer at the end as well.
Yeah.
Like throwing that in.
Yeah. Originally, that was at the beginning in the script. That's how the film opened.
Right.
And what it did is, and we did a cut of the film, but it set the wrong tone. Right from almost like this is going to be, is this going to be like a comedy, you know? And so that's where it was like, no, we just decided to put it somewhere else. Because they say you do 3 films: the one you write, the one you film, and the one you edit. And I learned that. And at times I learned it the hard way, you know, that it's going to be different. And but it was a good experience to learn it.
Like, what did you bring from your documentary background to this? How did that help you in any way to be able to do this film?
I think so, in a couple of different ways. First, we shot it like it was a bit of a documentary, even though the cinematography is beautiful. But if you notice, a lot of times we tried to give the feel that you're in the character's perspective and kind of following the action along like it was a doc, but also in having worked with people like that, just very different people, from Snoop Dogg to Shaq to, I've done projects with just
Nature Boy.
yeah,
I mean, CM Punk.
Ric Flair, some
Man, it's
big
crazy.
personalities, and to me, the key to that is I try to form genuine relationships with these people, and it's not always easy when the person can be guarded or a big celebrity or whatever. But to me, that's how you get the truth in a documentary, because some people go with like, oh, you shouldn't become friends with your documentary subjects. You should keep them at arm's length. And I feel the exact opposite, because I feel like a true friend will tell you a hard truth.
Yes.
And so I think I want to form good relationships with my subjects. I want them to trust me and go on this journey together. And that's the approach I took with the actors. And just like certain celebrities are different, just like Snoop Dogg is way different than maybe Rob Lowe or Shaq, how you deal with them and how you try to kind of get what you want or what you need. So are actors. Some are method actors. Some can show up and just get in a character like that. Some like to joke around. Everyone's different. It's not one size fits all. So I took that approach, and I think hopefully it worked in just getting the best performances possible.
No, the performances were great, but it's funny because I've heard your name for a few years now.
Oh, okay.
But it was only at the side of the film, because again, like as I said, I didn't read up on anything. I just wanted to go in cold. And then I see Dean Thomas, and I'm like, oh shit, that's Dean Thomas.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking, Rory, right. That's who he took. There's, like
that's Dean, the guy who owes me money.
As Dean and Matt always talk about you like so highly with regards to Dana White looking for a fight, and other people have talked about him like, oh yeah, Rory from and so then it's so yeah, I can see that you do. You're able to build those relationships because, the people that I've heard talk about you definitely talk about you in that vein.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I try. And yeah, it's crazy because, we were just having a conversation before. I did this film called I Hate Christian Laettner, and Christian,
which I love.
And when the film, when they did the announcement of the film, Christian called me up and he was like, hey, my mom's really upset. Like, she's really mad at you. We have to change the title. And I'm like, whoa, hold on here. Let me call your mom. So like his mom was really upset and she was like cussing me out on the phone. So I was like, well, let me come to you in person. Let me meet you in person. And I was like, oh man, like this lady's mad, And she's saying like, how dare you? People love my son. So I was like, oh, what can I do? So I knew she was a school teacher. She was a school teacher. I think she was retired. So I had like two cute little kids. They were my kids. I didn't just grab two cute kids, but they were mine.
He borrowed them.
Yeah, my son. So when I brought them with me to go meet with her, and instantly it disarmed her. She's like, oh, he brought his kids? Like, she thought we were having this big meeting. And I have like my little 7-year-old, and there's at the time were so cute. And so it just disarmed her. And then I explained myself. I was honest. I was like, look, this isn't, I'm not doing this film to like just shit all over your son. I'm doing this as an entry point to look at hate in sports. And the truth is, a lot of people who aren't big basketball fans have no idea who Christian Laettner is, or it was a long time ago. So people are like, oh, who is this guy? It just gets you interested. So I said, you just have to, in a way, trust me. You have no reason to trust me, but I'm just telling you that isn't my intent. And I just showed Sean before we started, like she had written me a letter after the film aired and just kind of saying that, like how she appreciated it and whatnot. So I think like you got to try to find a way in to those different vulnerabilities, and everybody's different. Shaq, you mentioned the UFC. Shaq's a big MMA guy. Huge. He's like he is like a real life superhero if you've ever been around him. He's like 7'1", like 380, muscle, just like so big, and very much a stubborn person, like his way or the highway. And I had to do a series with him and get him to do things that I wanted. I'm 5'6", like he could literally just go boop, and there goes my head, you know. So I was like, one time I was like, yeah, I roll MMA. I'll do jiu-jitsu with you. And he was like, yeah. And I just like, let's go. And I had him get on top of me, this monster. I'm trying to choke him out. I'm like a little flea on him. And he picks me up and slammed me on the ground. And then it like became like our thing. Like he would be like, Rory, let's wrestle. And like he choke me and do all these things. And it got to the point where legal from Turner, TNT, TBS legal sent me a certified letter they wanted me to sign saying that they are not responsible for my bodily harm. And they wanted me to sign this. And I'm like, I'm not choosing to wrestle Shaq. This guy just keeps coming up to me now from behind, and he thinks it's like hilarious to almost snap me in half. But that's what it took. Like he respected me then. He's like, oh, man, I could almost kill this guy. And he keeps coming back for more. One time I tried to do an arm bar on him, and he literally had me on his arm, my whole body, and he was just walking around with me. But that's what he respected. He was an athlete. And while I'm not an athlete, I was somebody like, I'll get physical, you know, nothing threatening, but that's what it took.
You've got a heart. You've got a heart.
So, and you know, I think that show turned out well. So whatever it takes, you know, at the end of the day, to get the best performance.
No, I completely get that. There's like, my field is communications. And so, you know, when you're having a conversation with someone, it's, you know, it's finding that through thread with that person, you know what I mean? Whether it's just like, you know, they may have directed or starred in a certain film that you really enjoyed, or they've worked with someone whose work you really respect, but you find that little thing that you can have that be like, yo, I see you. And they're like, oh yeah, boom. And it really just changes the tone of everything. And you're able to talk, and and you find people open up a lot more. You know, and sometimes you're talking about stuff that isn't even the project they're working on, but then that gets them really invested. And then they start giving. I had a conversation with a guy about a film. It was called Badger. It was a really good film. And the guy was a stuntman. And we started to talk about like the stunt industry and, you know, all of that kind of things. And this conversation just went this completely different direction, but he opened up about just all of these just horrendous things like the stunt people get made to do with little to no compensation. But it was such a great conversation because of that, you know.
It's awesome. Yeah, you know, it can be tough sometimes. Like Andrew McCarthy's in this film, and he would probably tell you he can be a little curmudgeon-y sometimes, and he's a director. And he was really in the scene at the end. I don't want to give too much away, but there was every character from the film was in the scene. We cut it out, but there was a lot going on. And he was really frustrated that the first thing we didn't do was blocking. Like he wanted, but he's like, why aren't we blocking? He just goes, why aren't we blocking? Like he was really annoyed. So I was like, I said, will it make you feel better if we block? He's like, yes. I'm like, okay. He's like, and he was like almost taking over. He's like, what if we did that? But it was making him comfortable. And at the end of the day, he had to act in the scene. And I think he gives his performance is really the end of the movie. Yeah. He has to come through on that. So he did his thing. I let him do his thing. And then like, I would just interject. I'm like, well, what if he went there? And then McCarthy, like, yes. That's great. So then we're working together. And then at the end of the day, he put his arm around me and he's like, I'm sorry, you know, I'm kind of old school. I'm like, nah, man. And then he wrote me a really nice text afterwards. Like I didn't, maybe some people would have an ego about that. Like, no, man, you're the actor. You go over there. We're going to do it this way. But he needed to get that out of him. Otherwise, he would be really agitated and annoyed. And what he needed to be was emotional and in the scene as an actor, not as a director. Because he directs a lot. He directs a lot of episodic television. So
yeah. I watched his documentary Brats,
yeah.
which was really interesting because in the documentary he talks about his relationship with Rob. And how when they were young, he thought there was this rivalry between them. And throughout, he's just like, I'm trying to get, he's talking to all of these different people, Ali, like Demi and just everyone. But he's like, I keep on reading Rob, and Rob's not returning my phone calls. I think Rob doesn't like me. Blah, blah, blah. And then in the end, they have a conversation, and he said, and Rob's just like, no, everything's cool. And he's just like, oh, and he realizes that a lot of the stuff he was feeling was just a perception that he got, not from his friends, but from the media, what the media was saying. So it was really interesting.
Yeah, Rob did tell me he doesn't like him, though. He did. No, I'm just joking. Said he was a bit much. No, he never said that.
They just iron things out, man. Like, now they're gonna feud for another 20 years.
You started another war.
Oh, my fault. I didn't know I wasn't allowed to say that. No, I'm just
good job, Rory.
Just kidding.
But it was then interesting to see that now he's made a film with Rob's son. So that was like a funny kind of 6 degrees situation.
Definitely.
But you've got a load of you got a few UFC stars in this.
Yeah.
How did all of that come about?
Well, it was mainly just, again, when you're making a indie film, I'm just trying to put every bullet in the chamber to try to just give us ammunition to get this out. And doing my work with the UFC, I'm friendly with some of these guys, and like Dean Thomas and Aljamain Sterling, they have aspirations for acting. So I was able to put them in the film. Even Chris Weidman is in the film. He doesn't have a speaking part. He did, but it didn't wind up making it in. But he shows up in the film.
Yeah, he's got a cameo as the priest.
He's got a cameo. And so, it's just, to me, it's a combination of, these are some people that, like, if you're into the UFC, maybe you'll give the film a try. And we talk about, and I don't know if this is a good thing or bad thing. James Storm's in it, a pro wrestler. Maybe you could tell me this, Kevin, but movies that have UFC fighters in it or former UFC fighters aren't always the best quality films. So sometimes people feel like there's some guys in this and they think, oh, is this going to be just like a low budget action movie? Yeah. And even with Chris Weidman, Weidman hadn't seen the film. He just read his scene. And I guarantee you, Matt Serra, he hadn't watched the film. And he even told me, he's like, man, I thought this was going to be terrible. Like, you're telling me Weidman and Aljo are acting in this film. I just thought it was going to be awful. So his expectations are low. And he's messaging me. He's like, Rory, this is really good. Like, with exclamation points. He's like, I can't believe Grace Point's a good movie. He just kept saying that over and over again. And I think it's good to you keep the expectations low. So hopefully, let's say the film is good to very good, and then people will say it's excellent. Yeah. So that's why they're in there, just to try to get some attention, and also because they're my friends. Like,
also they did a great job.
They did, and Dean Thomas, I think Dean Thomas really did some prep. I mean, he gained weight for it. He really went out of his way, and I think he's a good actor. He's a great human being, a good friend of mine, and if he wants it, and I talked to Aljamain today, I said, Aljamain, when you're done with fighting, I think you could definitely have an acting career.
Yeah, and James did a great job too.
Yeah, James Storm.
These guys were all my henchmen.
Yeah. Yes, they were great.
Heavies, yeah.
It was really fun seeing them all. Because again, I've heard Dean talk about like the aspirations of being an actor, and I tried to get a conversation with him about his last short film, but wasn't able to connect. But it's like you'd hear about him talk about this, but I'd completely forgotten about Grosse Pointe. So then when you watch it and then suddenly you see them in it, it's like, oh shit, okay. But you are right. Like, because it was the same with rappers and wrestlers. Like back in the day, you'd see a film and it's got like, all of these the low no limit soldiers in it, and you're like, okay, and then you watch it and be like, oh no.
Yeah.
Right? And then you'd see some other films like with early John Cena, and it was just like, oh shit. But it's just, I think it's funny how things have developed, right? Because a lot of indie films back in the day, like B-level films, would just be ropey and it. But now you watch indie films. There's indie films that are better than Hollywood films.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Well,
So
yeah, especially now too, because it seems like since COVID, or they take so many less chances. The big
oh,
movies
so
are
many.
either just a blockbuster or a sequel. And I love Marvel movies and superhero movies, but the smaller indie films, it's not like you think about the 1990s when they were just Miramax and they were just churning them out all the time. You know, it's changed quite a bit. You agree?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I remember for years, right? They would talk about Hulk as being a flop, right? Because, you know, Spider-Man made just, I mean, like triple the budget. X-Men, similar. It was like so much money. And then we talk about, but Hulk, you know, Hulk dropped the ball. Now, Hulk, it was interesting. It wasn't, I didn't love it. I thought the James Norton Hulk, Incredible Hulk, was a lot better. But when I looked into the numbers, Hulk actually made double the budget. But because it didn't make Spider-Man X-Men money, people talk about it like it's a flop, which is this weird thing. And so you get Hollywood, a film has to make an astronomical amount of money. Otherwise, it gets talked about like it's a flop and they don't want to take a chance. So they'd rather do a sequel or a remake or a reimagining than go, let's just come with a new idea. And sometimes you have these films that it's called one thing, like the name of a brand, a franchise, or whatnot, but they've changed the concept so much, it's not that thing. So it's just like, just call it something else. Like, let it be something else. You know what I mean? If it's a good story, people will come. But there does seem to be this fear. And indie filmmakers, man, you talk to the people, and there's a fearlessness sometimes. You know what I mean? They're just like, man, we wanted to do this thing, but you know, we didn't have to. So we just tried this and it worked. And then we did this. And so you just get this really interesting, like, concept, this really engrossing film that resonates a lot more than, you know, Fast and the Furious 21.
Yeah. Ironically, Jim Parrick was in Fast and the Furious 9. He kills Vin Diesel's father in the film. So yeah, no, Sean's been in a lot of great indie films, and having said that, he is very open to being in a giant blockbuster as well. So he has no problem selling his soul for a boatload of cash.
I'm not against it. I mean, you love Grace Point, though. All right? Stay on target. But yes.
Well, I think, you know, the funny thing, and it's a bit like, you know, back in the day where Hollywood stars didn't want to do TV because they thought it was a step backwards. And now people are clamoring to do TV, and the working TV is getting them film roles, right? I feel like when you see people with indie and they give these great performances and they're allowed to just let rip in a way that you might not be able to in a studio film. I think it can be that thing that opens the door to landing a big, you know, superhero project or, you know, something else.
Well, I think the medium has gotten bigger. You know, you look at TV. Back in the day, it was 3 channels. Then it became 4 channels. You know, and you know, it was very studio run. Now everything you even have independent TV shows. Like I've done independent TV shows where you still get that freedom and you get to flex your muscles and you get to really like stretch for a character. And
Sean did a show. What's the name of the show that they filmed it and then sold it to Hulu?
Everyone's doing great.
Yeah. And that was a great show. Yeah. And even shows like All American.
And we just shot second season on that one too. So it should be coming out soon.
Everyone's doing great. And All American had a life on the CW. Sean was on All American. He played Coach Garrett. And then he would have a second life on Netflix.
Yeah. So we on the CW, we'd have a run through for the whole season on the CW. And then it was the #1 show on the CW. And then it would go over to Netflix and it would be #1 on that show on Netflix for a couple months. And so it was like, you get 2 runs on it. And it's just because the medium's so big now. You've got network TV, you got streaming, you've got, so many streaming sites and so many different shows. So it's a good time to be an actor, a director, a filmmaker, creator, because it's out there and the possibilities are growing.
Yeah, no, that is definitely true. But with all of these different platforms, and you have to get a subscription, blah, 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 all of this. How have you found it, as a filmmaker, Rory, to be able to, get projects and get them seen? Because sometimes like I stumble across something on, Prime or Netflix or Disney Plus, but it's not been talked about. I've just been flicking through and suddenly found this thing. I'm like, oh, I'll give this a look. And then be like, oh, that's great. But there's no push behind it.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to lie to you. It's a really tough time in our industry right now, at least on the unscripted side, because after COVID happened, a lot of the streamers consolidated, meaning they merged. And I used to go out and pitch a project, and you could pitch to 30 places, tons of cable networks, all this. Now you're pitching, if it's a project everyone wants, you get like 5 or 6 pitches. Like seriously, for a series, once you get beyond your Netflix or Hulu and Amazon, there's not a whole lot there. So it is tough. And what the analogy I would make is things are always going to be changing, the mediums of how things air. It looked like theatrical was going away at one point. And if you're a creator, and whether it's filmmaking, writing, whatever, but you're a creator, I would say it's like akin to romantic love. Okay. If somebody told you, filmmaking, being a creative, it will break your heart at times. It's going to beat you down. You're going to face rejection. You're going to face degradation. You're going to say, why am I doing this?
Disappointment.
Yeah, tons of disappointment. You're going to get the highest of highs, the lowest of lows. It's just like romantic love. You're going to get rejected by this girl that you have. But, when you fall in love, the butterflies are there and, rainbows and unicorns, nothing's better in life. The same way with making a film. So there's never going to be a perfect situation where all the stars align and everything's going great. And there's always going to be something in your way. And so when people ask me for advice, whether it's unscripted or scripted, I was just like, yo, man, you just got to go for it. Like, and not stop. Like, you can't have a backup. You got to do this until you die. And that's the end game. And I mentioned this we were doing another interview.
And enjoy the journey.
100%. Yeah. And try not to get too down. If it's the same way, if like you break up with somebody, you feel like you never want to have a relationship ever again. And then guess what? You meet somebody new eventually and you heal. So like, Sean's got a crazy story. I don't know how much he likes me telling it, but I'm going to tell it because he is the quintessential working actor. If you look at Sean's IMDb, the amount of projects he's done and the amount of roles, some roles, big roles on big projects, some small roles, he's done it all. TV, movies, Ford versus Ferrari, soap operas, everything. Sean won a reality show a long time ago. What was the name of the show?
It's called Next Action Star. They thought it was going to be like the next American Idol, but for actors.
So
it was produced by Joel Silver.
The first season of it, produced by Joel Silver. They think imagine winning American Idol. This is like a dream come true, the highest of highs. And then your movie comes out, and how does it?
The movie tanked. The show tanked and the movie tanked.
So, and you did not work in TV and film for how long?
It was like a DUI. It took 6 years to get off my record.
Oh shit!
I didn't work in TV and film from 2004 to 2010. But luckily I was able to book commercials still. I booked a lot of commercials.
Oh, okay.
I became a commercial actor and I made money that way. That's what kept the lights on. But as far as TV and film, I couldn't get arrested.
But even with the commercials, that still took a little while to come along after that.
Yeah, right? It was a little bit. Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of people in that position, Sean was a former fighter. He was a fighter too. And a lot of people say, oh, well, I gave the acting a try. I was in a movie. I won a show. Time to move on to something else. But he's like, no, this is my dream. This is what I'm here to do in life. And he went back to the drawing board, started taking acting classes and started doing plays. And this is how life comes full circle. In one of those acting classes, didn't you meet Jim Parrott?
Yeah. So I realized that I needed to regroup and kind of start from scratch all over again. Because I just, I was good enough to be good in scenes here or there, a couple scenes, but carrying a whole movie is still it's a whole nother ball of wax. And I needed more training. So I started the beginner level at a repertory theater company named Playhouse West. It's in North Hollywood. And there, Bob Carnegie, he's been there for years. He worked with Sanford Meisner and they teach the Meisner technique. And I started the beginner class, started from scratch all over again. It was let me start at the bottom level and work my way all the way up from beginner, intermediate, advanced. And then eventually I became a member in one of their longest running plays, Welcome Home Soldier. And that is where I met Jim Parrott in those classes. And then Jim Parrott and I were castmates in Welcome Home Soldier for many years to come, or for many years. And that's how Jim Parrott, who plays Cutter, recommended me to Rory. He said, he hit me up and he's like, hey, I got a guy here. I think it'd be perfect for it. But during that time, it took that time for me to regroup and just I knew that this is something I wanted. I was like, I have to go at this a different way. It didn't work out the other way. Now I need to get serious and really train myself as an actor. And I did. And eventually it started paying off again, but it took a little while.
It's kind of like Brandon Moreno, right?
Oh, the fighter. Yeah.
Yeah. Works, Ultimate Fighter, has a run on the UFC, gets cut, goes out, wins I think he won the LFA championship, came back, becomes UFC champion.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fighters you could apply those things to. That, I mean, fighting is such a great analogy for life.
Sure.
But yeah, you get knocked down, you get back up. I mean, it's a cliche. Cliches are cliches because they're true a lot of times. So yeah, I think in this business, you're going to get knocked down a lot. And, like Rocky said, it's not about how many times you get knocked down. It's about how many times you can get back up. So,
and I've been in this business long enough to know that if you just keep doing it, you keep doing it, sooner or later, you're gonna run into a lot of dead ends, but it's gonna make you make a left turn, then a right turn, and then all of a sudden you're somewhere else, and you're like, oh, okay, this is where I was actually supposed to be. I took all those failures and those disappointments and shortcomings to get to this point, and so that's I'm very lucky in the career that I've had, and it's taken me a lot of years to realize that, hey, there are no mistakes. It's just you move forward. Just move forward.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Because it's like when you think about relationships, right? And it's as you said, Rory, you can be in one and then it ends and you think, I'm never going to meet someone again. And then you do meet someone. But it's just if you haven't been in a failed situation, you don't know what the benchmark is for a great situation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You need a foundation and you need to know the things you're prepared to put up with, the things in how you communicate, the things where you can, bend and cooperate. And you just need to know all of that.
100%.
And so, so I think being able to grind, right? You really find the essence of someone.
Yeah, I agree. And ironically, bringing it full circle, Rob Lowe show, The Grinder. John Owen Lowe was on that show. That's where he made his acting debut.
Right?
Yeah, he was on that show.
Yeah.
So, see, I bring it all around.
Oh man. That's funny, man. That's funny. But what's it, because I think the film drops on the 28th, right?
Yeah, it's 28th. It's on anywhere with VOD.
And then we're having the LA premiere on the 30th.
Yeah, but the 28th is where people can get the movie on Apple, Amazon. You can rent it through cable, anywhere video on demand is there. And especially if you like the film, including yourself, like, review it, please leave a review, because indie film is all word of mouth, and you got to build momentum, and you do it one person at a time. That one person then tells that other person, and that's how it grows. And we had a showing today in Charlotte, and one person had driven today 2 hours, and he had said something like, he had been in rehab, and this film really spoke to him, and he was a big UFC fan, and he was like, I'm going to tell everybody about it. I was like, man, it's worth it just for him to meet him and be out there. So yeah, if you enjoy the film, please spread the word. And if you don't enjoy the film, then just keep quiet, okay? Nobody wants to hear from you.
But yeah, that is a thing, though. I think the way you show the addiction and like actually someone jonesing in the way that he is, I think you did that well. Because sometimes you watch something and it's just like, I'm an addict, but you don't really see any signs of that, right? So
that's
I thought
that's where Johnny helped, because he was an addict. So they knew how to keep that. Him and Jim Parrick are both in recovery. So and Andrew McCarthy. So they were all, in fact, there's a scene between Johnny's character and Andrew's character, a big scene towards, I don't want to give too much away, but there's a big scene between the two of them. And Johnny had told me that he and his father had that conversation almost verbatim. And so he really helped with that dialogue to make it more real. So credit to him. He's a great writer and definitely helped enhance the film that way.
Another thing I just remembered that I really liked was the fact, because the amount of times you see a film and people get stranded or they're lost or they're traveling for days, hair's always perfect, clothes fresh to death, like they look like they've been in a hotel. But in this, we actually see the wear on Johnny, and I was just like, oh, thank God they actually did that shit right.
Well, that was our costume designer, Ashlyn Burke, and hair and makeup, Megan Deputy. Yeah, they just really paid attention. And we had a small group, but because we had a small group, they could pay attention to a lot of detail that way. And Johnny runs a lot in the movie. And he's not a track star by nature. So he'd be like, my feet are hurting. I'm like, run it again. And there's one scene where he has a burlap sack on his head. And it was a real burlap sack. It had all the dust mites in there, and they keep pulling it off him. He's coughing. He's like, hold on. He's like, let me just get a break. I go, put the sack back on his head. So they put the sack back, and it got caught on his throat. So yeah, those are real coughs. And somebody asked too, there's another scene where they're in the water. There's like a lake. Were they really in the lake? Yep, they were really in that lake. They jumped in there. They're really swimming. And he went in there, and he's like, "Oh, we got it." I'm like, "Yeah, we're gonna do another take." He's like, "Oh, I just got dried." I'm like, "Get in there!"
So you make a great film, but you end your relationship with the Lows.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, Rob told me don't go easy on him, so I was like, "Hey, I'm just listening to orders." He said, don't go easy on him. And look, Johnny was game for everything.
Yeah, he was game.
And at the end of the day, he's in almost every single scene of this film.
So. And when we were making the film, it was such a joy to make it. And like, we really felt like we were creating something special. And, the fact that we had that we had a me Peric and Johnny had a saying. We were just like playing with house money. This is house money. You know what I mean? This is the whole thing is just working out, and the way we shot all the scenes and the connection. We're like, man, we get done with this with a day, we'd be like, man, house money again. We're playing with house money, and that's what it felt like. You know, we were just. It just felt like house money, you know, just like we were ahead, we were up, we were feeling good, and we were getting good stuff done.
Yeah, it was one of the best experiences of like my life, not just my career, filming the movie, because it was just so enjoyable. And I formed so many genuinely close relationships. Like Sean's become one of my best friends, I feel like, and he trained me for my fight. I had a fight after the film. With the Lowe family. I fought no, I didn't fight the Lowe family, but I had a fight in the cage, and Dean Thomas trained me for it. Yeah. And
he had an actual amateur boxing match.
Yeah. And
and I asked him, I said, are you crazy? What do you mean you're having a fight? He's like, I've always wanted to know what it's like. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I felt like I had filmed the UFC guys so many times taking that walk, and I just was like, one time in my life, I want to know what that's like.
Yeah,
he did it. And also I felt like I see these media people sometimes, you know, and how do you relate to it? I wanted to have some type of relation. So, but these guys trained me, and
he did it, and he won.
Well, I am undefeated.
It was
I like
in Denver, Colorado. I flew out for
it. But all that came from the film. And so the film was such a special experience on set. And then you wonder, will it translate into the edit room when you put the film together? And hopefully it did. Hopefully there's some of the magic came out that we had on set on the actual film. And to hear how you're responding to it, Kevin, is really special. That it meant something to you. So it means a lot that you enjoyed it.
Well, I mean, you can only enjoy the product that's put in front of you, man. And it was just a great product, man. It like all the elements work, right? It is, as I said, the beginning, you buy this fractured relationship. And so then we see Sean come into things, and it's just like, yo, like, what the fuck? What's happening here? You're in it. And then this great situation with Cutter that you buy again. So you're just on this ride, and then at the end, it's just like, oh, god damn. You know what I mean? So it was just really enjoyable and really well put together. So, man, just a huge congratulations, man.
Well, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, man.
Spread the word if you don't mind.
No, for real. I will be telling people to go check. Like, after watching the film, I messaged my girlfriend because we're huge fans of like Pretty in Pink, 16 Candles, all of those kind of things. So I was just like, oh, I'm watching this. Andrew McCart is in it. She's like, oh shit, okay, let me know what it's like. So I was just like, yo.
But there was a part, Andrew's really driving the car, the Escalade in the movie. He's like, I'm really driving this thing. And I'm like, yeah, you're really like we didn't have like a flatbed or anything. I'm like, yeah, you're really driving it. And he kind of made a face. I'm like, hey man, this ain't Weekend at Bernie's 2. Get in the car. So he was like, touche. And he got in there and he did his thing. So yeah, man. Well, we appreciate you having us on. It's a lot of fun talking to you.
Yeah.
Hey, no worries, man. No, this has been great. I really appreciate the time. What's next for you guys?
Well, I just finished a movie, another movie called Demonetized. So hopefully that could be coming out in the spring. And, just looking for that next project at this point.
That's a good title. Demonetized, and because you're a ghost hunter. Yeah. For me, I have actually a project coming out on ESPN next week called The Buddy Way. And then I have a series on Hulu coming out in the summer called Sex, Money, Murder. But man, I'm all Grace Point all the time right now.
Yeah, we're all Grace Point.
Grace Point film is the social media handle and the website. And again, it's VOD January 28th, and it definitely helps if people can rent it or buy it.
Leave a review.
Yeah, and leave a review.
Fantastic. Well, people, the links will be on the website, so make sure that you go check it out. As I said, if you like good filmmaking, right, good storytelling, you're gonna like Grosse Point, and make sure you go follow Sean and Rory as well. You know, oh, Rory, can you give the location of the next Looking for a Fight by any chance?
We just filmed it Looking for a Fight last month. It was supposed to be South Korea, and it got changed because they were having like some kind of uprising that week. And we instead went to Tampa, Florida, and streamed the fights from South Korea. And Matt and Dean did yoga with goats. That was one of the activities they did. And it might be one of the funniest segments we've ever done. They did something called goat yoga. And then Dean learned how to swim. He was trained by the Coast Guard in Tampa. He never learned how to swim.
Oh my God.
So not only does he learn how to swim, he becomes a rescue swimmer. So yeah, there's some good shenanigans, and that'll probably be out in the spring. And again, man, the UFC has enough money. Grosse Point Film, check that out.
Oh, no, for sure. All
right. Thank you, sir.
Hey, thanks for the time, guys. Take it easy.
Man. Have a good one.
All right. Bye.